Welcome. Are you sitting comfortably? Are you focused and not thinking about whatever's bothering you these days? I'm not here to test you. Please relax. Let your thoughts come and go and listen as they fade away in the distance. For better or for worse, this is where your life has brought you. Looking at a screen, listening to me. Imagine, for a moment, that you've just had a child. It's healthy, but unfortunately also completely blind. For their whole life, they will live in the dark and not see a thing. Their perception of reality is something that you might never be able to comprehend. How would you describe the world to them? What can't be touched or heard, smelled or tasted? How would you describe sunlight? By what it does? Or how it feels on their skin? I think I'd play them this piece of music. First composed by Tchaikovsky in 1878, these rays of light have traveled through decade after decade, finally reaching your ears this very moment. You have also traveled far to get here today, but you're only passing through and should probably get going.
I'd like to tell you a story. It all happened to me when I was young.
Walking in a forest, much like you are. Those were days filled with boundaries and rules.
Of no running in the hallways, don't do this or that or the other. With my world full of fierce discipline, I walked the forest to breathe.
One day, deep in the woods, I found a funny-looking tree,
Crooked, old, and wrinkly. With little work, a few bits of bark became huge ships. Calm creeks turned to
Ferocious oceans. I can still recall the people I imagined dragged downstream with a sense of guilt.
as I gazed back upon the old tree.
I noticed something peculiar. It was crying.
Every crumple,
Like eyes closed tightly. Clear drops streaming silently down its wrinkled skin.
So I did, as children do, tasted it.
Not because it looked tasty, but to figure out what it was.
The first drop made my tongue tingle. The second made it prickle.
At the very moment the third landed on my tongue, a profound sensation
Spread through my chest. Undefinable, like thirst, both vague and specific.
One thing was clear. Something was changing within me.
I remember breathing in
And out. Feeding the fire.
I studied them closely,
discovering circular ridges in the foreign landscapes of my skin. The prickling soon slipped my attention.
It would be another week until it returned.
A wave of gentle needles moving over my skin.
A limb falling asleep, perhaps?
I did not start worrying until it returned for the third time.
First making its way up my neck, before engulfing my skull
completely from behind.
I could even feel the tiny needles covering my eyeballs.
But it did not stop there. I held my breath
As the small thorns crawled around my lips before spreading into my lungs and stomach.
My awareness spread with it, and I remember the strange sensation
Of my mushy dinner in there, as if I held its remains
In the palm
of my hand.
Suddenly, my body took control and opened my mouth, an explosion of air rushing into my lungs. The
Tingling spread with it,
through an endless web of veins, soon reaching my beating heart.
For a moment, I stood in awe of the activity.
within my body. I felt my heart beating faster and my skin sweating. Your body is your only vessel in this world.
And when it misbehaves, the claustrophobia is total.
Seek help? I thought. And at that very moment, the tingling needle shot from my brain down through my spine. I felt them scatter through my upper leg, where muscles contracted to lift my knee. My body weight shifted forward, and a shockwave
Spread from the foot sole as it landed softly on the ground.
The process repeated itself in greater details for every step. I was overwhelmed, but my body
kept moving. I did not at all
Feel like the boss,
giving directions. It all happened automatically, and I was
Simply along for the ride. Like you.
The doctor's office was cold and white.
Crossing the floor felt like a polar expedition. My parents, distant features of the landscape.
I wanted to explain, but was unable.
My lips and tongue engaged in an intricate
choreography, myself in the audience observing the words performed.
my lips muttered.
I'm sure it will pass. While my thoughts were crying for help.
conversation kept going, but I stopped paying attention.
Instead,
I was following
the hands of a clock
mounted on the doctor's wall. They were both speeding up and slowing down.
I was slipping further and further away, a levitating camera
In a video game, merging with the code it was running on.
again with the binary, with electronic circuit and so on.
I closed my eyes
And let my sensations lead me. First, I spent some time with my bones. Among their many functions,
I got lost in their continuous breathing. An uninterrupted flow of calcium absorbed and released.
Even my skeleton was alive and living.
in and of itself.
I could feel my mind
Clinging to the known, to the cluttering thoughts that
The buzzing of memories and fears of the future.
but for each breath, tension was released.
and my shoulders sunk comfortably.
It had certainly felt like I was in there, somewhere behind my face. But I was nowhere to be found. And the more I looked, the more hazy
I became.
when my eyelids eventually opened.
They felt as slow as a sunrise.
Photons converted to neurosignals.
Shooting along the optic nerve, each carrying a piece of information into the darkness.
The brain
Categorized motion, colors, edges.
I sat for a moment in the dust,
Watching the sunrise.
When the world eventually lit up, I was no longer wondering why
Matter lights up from the inside. My experience had changed from the fire to the light it emits.
But it would get much stranger still. As the moments stretched, I started daydreaming, or so I thought.
It began as a shimmering field, creeping slowly in
From the periphery
of my vision. The hands of the clock.
still moving, but among them, vague shapes.
Slowly,
But surely, I saw
Trees flowing past me.
and among them,
myself, sitting right there in the doctor's office with a vacant expression.
While walking around myself, I was surprised
To still see the clock.
straight ahead. Myself from the side, the clock on the wall.
The two images were not overlapping, they just
existed. Like imagine a familiar place.
With your eyes closed, and you see both nothing and something at the same time.
I tend to look towards myself.
but saw only the face of the doctor.
Lingering somewhere between confusion, concern,
and annoyance. However, when I studied his face closer,
I was struck by terror.
The image of myself
I turned to look.
Straight into my own eyes.
I felt my own hand reach out towards myself.
The weight of my hand landing softly on my own shoulder.
Eyes distant, looking at the doctor, looking at myself.
rules and boundaries disappearing.
Recollections of past sorrows, relationships,
education, and even medical experience.
And at last,
I was no longer alone.
Not in the sense that
the doctor was there in the room,
but rather that we were together.
In the darkness
of my mind. A vast number of sensations were still flowing, but now
with two observers to share the burden.
As I kept breathing, the fire kept spreading.
Soon it swallowed my parents, sitting in their chairs, doubting my story.
I felt contradicting opinions and ideas
coexist, but not in conflict. Different notes in harmonious chords
shaping a balanced, indivisible whole.
More clouds spread into my vision,
and more sensations through my body.
The music was evolving. I looked at my hand.
5 fingers against the surface felt no different than 5 bodies
or minds. Branches becoming aware
that they were connected to the same trunk all along.
Their experience my own.
All of them present in my mind. The prickling kept spreading. Each needle on my skin,
another presence in my mind.
More and more observers sharing the burden. A vast number of sensations flowing. My world, like musical sunlight, just passing through.
Every individual
going about their business. Strangers on the street unaware that they were all each other,
their surroundings, and me.
I knew and felt them all as I knew and felt myself. And I could no longer feel contempt.
Whether anyone was somehow less deserving. There was no longer me and you.
No us versus them. It was all just me.
As I kept breathing in and out,
Each new breath pushed me along a ubiquitous landscape.
That was simply too beautiful to ignore.
What lay past each tree and beyond every hill was another idea I knew to be true.
Mountains, transient shadows of matter
Flowing through time. Slowly from one point of view.
But for the mountain itself, oh boy, it's in a hurry.
like everyone else. Both glow and scream. An expression of energy floating through
empty space. All experiences merging to one.
There I was. All of us. You, me, I.
The light that shines through the film. All else
is smoke and mirrors.
stories. This one also ends.
Not because the story has an ending, but because it keeps moving,
leaving us behind.
My body kept living.
Like yours will. With surfaces preserving its illusion of separateness.
The screen. Our very own eyes. I couldn't tell if I ascended or dissolved.
I'm soaring through space, but unable to move, nevertheless.
And as I turn in orbit,
the boundary between light and dark keeps moving. A cascading wave of thoughts
arriving at dawn, just to slip away at dusk.
A violent competition on a speck of dust suspended in nothing. An energy field fumbling in the dark, trying to describe myself. I want to be safe.
Well fed, not too warm, not too cold. To be acknowledged by my closest.
So even though you are another part of me looking back, you will always be a stranger.
A lump of resources for my exploitation. The branches
cut, our hemispheres separated
once again. Rocks
skipping along the surface, never sinking.
The inconsistent dash of beauty between the noise, picked up by a stranger with good intentions,
And with it, sentenced to die. I don't care
Who you are, or how you found me.
but we are both
Reaching in. A few lonely ways,
venturing through space in just the right direction.
Absorbed in our leaves, stored as sweet sugars, and exhaled as crisp and clean oxygen.
And while the light warms our skin,
Or while we wait for the next sunrise.
we breathe in and out.
All that matters is that you are here right now. And for a moment, we are together. You and me. As one.
Like we always are.
and we always will be.